What's up, guys? If you're interested in getting sweet altars like these every month, you can do so by visiting our Patreon at patreon.com/itresolves. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Crack a Pack series. Today, for a very special episode, we're opening up a pack of Eternal Masters. This set is fantastic, guys. There's a lot of really good stuff in this set. I'm very excited to be opening it. Obviously, it's a Master set, so there's going to be a lot of overpowered stuff in this one, and because it's Eternal Masters, it is going to be stuff that you might be used to seeing in like very old Eternal formats, so Legacy, things like that. That being said, it's very possible we just don't open anything all that exciting, but we're going to do the best we can. So, of course, we're going to go through this as if it is a draft scenario, so we'll actually hopefully be able to determine what our first round draft pick would be. Again, lots of powerful stuff, so we'll see what we get. But our first card here is Wake Dancer. It's a 2/2 for 2 and a black. It features Morbid, so when it enters the battlefield, if a creature has already died that turn, you put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. So what's really cool about this is 2 for 1 value off of just playing a creature is always welcome. It's always really overpowered in draft in particular. Because generally speaking, they're going to have to trade off a creature or a removal spell to deal with both of these creatures, which just means you're getting extra and extra value off of just one card. So I really like this card. Obviously, it's a common. It's not necessarily first pickable, but it is actually a pretty good start, in my opinion. Speaking of which, Mugwort Marshall is a 1/1 for 1 and a red with Echo. So at the beginning of your upkeep, if this came under your control since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless, in this case, you pay the Echo cost, which is 1 and a red. But when it enters the battlefield or dies, you put a 1/1 red goblin creature token onto the battlefield. So again, you're getting that 2 for 1 value, and in this case, you're even getting it when it leaves the battlefield. So it just makes it so much better. In my opinion, I prefer the War Marshal over the Wake Dancer because it's guaranteed tokens. Both are very good, and obviously the tokens with the Wake Dancer are a little more powerful, but early game, red is looking to just go wide and spread out as much damage as possible. This is the perfect card for it. Balli Ngoc Cohort is a 2/2 for 2 and a white. It does have first strike, and it gets +1/+1 as long as you control another white creature. This is a very good 3-drop, so very aggressive. It's got first strike, so it's going to be difficult to deal with just in combat. And most likely by turn 3, if you're playing a card like this, you're going to have another white creature out. It is worth noting if all of your other white creatures, for whatever reason, die, it does just become a 2/2, in which case it's not very good. But a 2/2 with first strike is still not necessarily that bad in the early turns, so I really like this card. I prefer the War Marshal just because I like to spread out that damage a little bit, but definitely this cohort, very strong 3-drop in my opinion. Commune with the Gods is a sorcery for 1 and a green. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or an enchantment card from among them into your hand and then put the rest into your graveyard. Worth noting, putting them into your graveyard, not necessarily the worst thing. I don't remember all the cards in this set offhand, to be honest, but I'm absolutely positive you can find some kind of synergy there if you really wanted to. Generally though, I don't like cards like this. It takes a little bit of time to set up, and this is one of those cards that helps you get there, but you're taking a turn off usually to do that, and I don't really like doing it. It also is a very telltale sign at the in the later turns of the game. If you play this, it's like, okay, well, clearly I'm just looking for something and I don't actually have it, which is really bad to signal to your opponent, excuse me. And so I don't love it for that reason. I just find it to be very mediocre. Stupefying Touch is an enchant creature for 1 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and the enchanted creature's activated abilities cannot be activated. Excuse me. I don't like this card very much. Activated abilities are very relevant. You do have to worry about them in draft, but it's going to be less relevant than something that just having flying or first strike or something like that, which is not an activated ability. It's just passive. That just has that. And so this, while definitely can shut off some very important cards, is very limited in that if you played it on a Mugwort Marshall, for instance, it doesn't actually do anything. And so a lot of times it's probably just going to be a dead card, in which case I just don't find it worth it. Emperor Crocodile is a 5/5 for only 4 mana, 3 and a green. When you control no other creatures, though, you do have to sacrifice it. So I find that this is a really good card for like a green-red in tandem with the War Marshal, in fact. Kind of go wide strategy where it's very, very aggressive, but it's also widespread. This is a very good top end for a deck like that because you're going to have multiple creatures out most of the time, in which case playing a 5/5 for 4 is just way ahead of curve. Absolutely something you're going to want to do. However, if you don't have those creatures, obviously the downside is you have to sacrifice it. So that's why that go wide strategy makes so much more sense in my mind. Because if they're only 1-for-1 removing your creatures or something like that, it's going to be very difficult to actually deal with this. And so I like it in that strategy. I'd still rather have the War Marshal. It's just a more early turns of the game, I feel it's a more powerful card, but that could be very wrong. Rugged Highlands is part of a land cycle. It enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain a life. It does, however, tap for green and red. So these gain life lands, whatever you want to call them, we do see very often. They've been reprinted a number of times, but they are good to pick up if you're in those colors. Later in the pack, they're great. Definitely pick them up in that instance. Reckless Charge is a sorcery for 1 red. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains haste until the end of the turn, and then you can flash it back for 2 and a red. This is not, worth noting, this is not a combat trick. It's not instant speed, it is sorcery speed, so you do have to play it on a main phase. Just want to point that out. It's not, it would be very, very good if it was instant speed, but unfortunately it's not. Because it's not, I'm less inclined to take it. I don't necessarily think it's bad if you're in a very, very aggressive strategy. Go for it then. I think it's fine, but definitely a later pick. It's not something I want to pick up early. Ibbits Ending is a tribal instant, elf. For 2 and a black, destroy target non-elf creature. This is just a very solid card. Elves are very good in this deck, or in this in this draft environment, and so it's very possible that you run into a strategy where you are up against a very elves heavy deck, in which case this is a very dead card for you. But I think most of the time you can mainboard 1 and be very, very safe, because against the majority of the decks that you're going to run into, this is just going to be a really, really efficient kill spell. It is an instant speed as well. I love that. I think it's better to take the Ibbits Ending over the War Marshal, just in general. And so far, I think that's going to be the pick. Bloodfell Caves is another part of that land cycle, except in this case it taps for black and red. Same thing I said before, definitely worthwhile picking up if you're in the later turns, or the later picks in the draft. Not necessarily something you want to pick up early. It doesn't really help you if you're not in those colors. So make sure you're in those colors first, or maybe trying to splash one of the colors or something like that. Roar of the Worm is a sorcery for 6 and a green. You put a 6/6 green worm creature token onto the battlefield, and then you can flash it back for 3 and a green. So, and this is one of those instances where the flashback cost is actually cheaper than the original cost of the card, in which case you kind of want to just get it in your graveyard as quick as possible. There are cards that allow you to do that. We saw Commune with the Gods. That helps you get there with this flashback deck. In which case it's actually really, really efficient. If you can do that on turn 4, my goodness, that's great. I don't know if it's better than the Ibbits Ending. I'm going to keep them together for now, and we'll decide in a bit. Well, okay. Swords of Plowshares is an instant for only 1 white mana. Exile target creature, its controller gains life equal to its power. That gaining life clause, more relevant in draft than it would be in constructed, but it's honestly just really important to be able to remove any creature, and it does get around indestructible things like that. It just straight up exiles it. So this is absolutely a fantastic card. It's one that I would absolutely want in draft, and so I could definitely see first picking it for sure. Quiet Speculation is a sorcery for 1 and a blue. Search target player's library for up to 3 cards with flashback and put them into that player's graveyard. Then that player shuffles his or her library. This, in tandem with something like Roar of the Worm, is really, really good. This enables that deck so well. Flashback was a very prominent deck with this set, and it's super, super good. So definitely could see this being a really strong first pick. I prefer Swords to Plowshares just because it's going to be good no matter what. This is only really amazing in that flashback deck, and so it's a little bit more pigeonhole-y, that kind of a thing, so I'm going to take the swords over it, but of course we do have our rare, which in this case, Goblin Charbelcher. So it's an artifact for 4 mana, pay 3, tap it, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a land card. Goblin Charbelcher deals damage equal to the number of non-land cards revealed this way to target creature or player. If the revealed land card was a mountain, Goblin Charbelcher deals double the damage instead. Put the revealed cards on the bottom of your library in any order. The notorious deck around this was in, I believe, Legacy? I could be wrong. But the whole thing was you cheat this out and then use its ability and you only have 1 mountain in your deck. You don't have any other lands. Excuse me. And so in that instance, you just deal all of that damage straight to the opponent, in which case they die immediately, which is great. It's really good there. I find it not very good everywhere else. It's a lot of mana to invest. You're going to have to play lands in a limited deck, and so you're not going to get the value off of it that you normally would. Of course, it is a bit random in that you're going to be able to flip some amount of non-land cards. In that case, it's not terrible. I mean, you can remove some creatures with it, which is pretty good. Or you can just nug the opponent for that damage. So there are instances where it's good. I would rather have the Swords to Plowshares, to be honest. We, of course, did get a foil here, which is Blossoming Sands. Exact same as the other 2 lands, except it taps for green and white. And I won't repeat the argument there. But I think for me, it's an easy Swords to Plowshares. Excuse me. Eternal Masters, fantastic set. Absolutely love opening it. Lots of great cards. Goblin Charbelcher, by no means a bad rare. It's just not the best for limited, in my opinion. So feel free to disagree in the comment section below. But if you like this video, please make sure to leave a like or a comment down below. And as always, please make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of our awesome content. But with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next Crack-A-Pack episode.